So I'm a fan of Emma Thompson. I usually like her even in movies I don't necessarily like. And in this one she plays a veteran late night TV host, who's grown a bit complacent with her place in the world. However, times change and you have to change with them. Adapt or die, and that's more or less the challenge she faces here. She has to find ways to adapt to this world of new media, or she might just become irrelevant and be forced off the air. That's essentially at the core of the story here. That's the main conflict and the main struggle. And she's got some personal issues she has to deal with as well. Then we also have this other character, this young new female writer on her show, played by Mindy Kaling. And her job is more or less to bring in some fresh blood and some new ideas. So that's the basic premise here, and well, there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. The story works well enough and there's nothing wrong with the acting either. And it's also not a bad looking or poorly directed movie. However, I just couldn't help but to feel like this whole thing just felt a little bit, I don't even know, stiff, safe, bland, very middle of the road. It didn't really have any edge to it, and it also didn't feel like it really had anything to say. I mean, it tried, it definitely touches on a lot of issues here. Things like gender equality and the Me Too movement, and comedy in today's society. But it all just felt very shallow when it just touched on those subjects in a very cursory way. It didn't dive very deep into those issues, and yeah, it felt like it didn't really have anything to say about them. Like it just brought them up and pointed at them without really making any kind of statement. Not that every movie needs to do that, but if you bring it up, you might as well have something to say about it. Now, when it comes to the humor and the comedy in this, it's alright, I laughed a few times, but mostly I just found it to be sort of amusing. On a very basic level too, it was just enough to keep me somewhat engaged. And then we have the characters that I honestly didn't really care very much for. I mean, really only two of them have any sort of depth at all. And basically only Emma Thompson's character felt like there was some actual complexity to her. And even then, the character just didn't feel very original, to be honest. She basically plays the stereotypical a-hole with a heart of gold. Someone who's a bit of a prick and treats people around her poorly, but is fundamentally actually not a bad person and has to find that good inside her to become a better person. And honestly, we've all seen that before a million times. That being said, I think she did a good job here. I don't think her performance was an issue. And there were even a few scenes with John Lithgow, who plays her husband, that were really good actually. But yeah, at the end of the day, this one just ended up being pretty underwhelming. There just wasn't a whole lot of great stuff going on, nothing really managed to stand out. And while I didn't actively dislike it or regret watching it or anything, it just felt a little bit pointless and too bland and mediocre to really make any sort of impression on me. I also couldn't help but to feel like the story and the premise here were really familiar to me. But I couldn't quite place it, so I had to do some digging. And I realized that yeah, the movie I was thinking of was Morning Glory, which while it is a very different movie, it also deals with a lot of the same kind of stuff. It's about working on a TV show, there's this young ambitious woman trying to make it, and of course there's this grumpy old news anchor who's stuck in his ways. So the parallels between the two are pretty clear, and there's good reason this one reminded me of that one. That being said, I wouldn't call Morning Glory a great movie by any means. But it did have this certain charm to it that I feel like this one lacks. And yeah, overall I think this one fell a bit flat, to be honest. But would I recommend it? I mean, there are worse movies out there, but not really. So you can probably skip it, or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you'd like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.